The answer on this one should be not moving around, but B. Number 2. The answer on this one should be C. Answer on this one should be A. Number 4. The answer on this one should be A. Pick a number and bring it up. The winning numbers today are 2, 4, 9, 13, and 19. Objective today to simplify complex fractions. Example 1. In this case, we have 3 plus I over I minus 2 minus 2 minus I over 4 plus I. Let's do these a little differently today. How about we simplify first and then we try to subtract the fractions, as opposed to yesterday where we find common denominators and then multiply by what we have to top and bottom and simplify after that. So we'll do it this way, and you can choose whichever way you like the best. Alright, so on the first one, we're going to have to multiply the top and the bottom by what if we want to simplify it first? I plus 2. So if I multiply by I plus 2, the scratch paper will be on the side here. I would have I minus 2 and then I plus 2 on the bottom. Remember, we multiply by the opposite sign to cancel out the middle terms, so what you really have is I squared minus 4. That's a negative 1 minus 4. So you would have a negative 5 on the bottom. Now on the top, I have to do the same thing to that. So if I multiply 3 plus I times I plus 2, then I would end up with a 6 plus 3I, and then plus I squared plus 2I. And we can simplify that in just a bit. So we'll keep the minus and this. We're going to run into that side pretty soon. Remember, that came from 6, 3I, I squared, and then 2I. On the other side, what do I have to multiply the top and the bottom by in order to simplify? 4 minus I. Yeah, so if I multiply by 4 minus I right here, on that spot, then I would come up with a 16 minus I squared. The minus I squared is going to turn into a plus 1, so that gives me 17 on the bottom. So on the top, when I multiply by 4 minus I end up with an 8 minus 2I, then minus 4I minus I squared. So now we can simplify our tops. You're going to have a 6 minus 1, which is a 5, and then 3I plus 2I. On the right side, 8 plus 1, the minus I squared is plus 1, so that gives me a 9. And then from the middle here, we'll end up with minus 6I. Of course, all of that is over 17. So if you're going to subtract these fractions, you just need a common denominator. And between the negative 5 and the 17, you're going to end up with an 85. Or a negative 85, whichever. So we'll just keep them the way they are. We'll make it negative 85. So on the bottom, we'll have a negative 85, but what did we have to multiply it by to get that? What did I multiply negative 5 by? 17, yeah. So on the top, I would have 85 plus 85I. And then on this side, another negative 85. And then multiply the 17 by what? Negative 5. So on the top, I'll have a negative 45 plus a 30I. Okay, so all of this together can go over the negative 85, which we can simplify later on. Now, you're going to have minus this quantity. So in terms of the constants, you'll have an 85 minus a 30, which would be a 55. And then in terms of the imaginary numbers, 85 minus a negative 45. Or not a negative 45, that should be, I had to think for a second, that's 30i. So it's 85 minus a 35. Have I done something terribly wrong? Yes, I have. I'll go back and find it. This is 85 minus a negative 45, which should be 130. So I'll scratch that out. And then we'll do 85i minus 30i, which should be plus 55i. Okay, so that should be better. Now we can simplify. What can we take out of everything? We can take a 5 out of everything. Let's take a negative 5 out of everything. So on the top, I would end up with what? Negative 5 times what is a positive 130. How much? 26? Okay. And then for the 55, if I take out a negative 5, I would have minus what? 11i. On the bottom, if I take out a negative 5, I'll end up with a what? 17. Okay, so let's cancel where we can. I have no other markers here, so we'll go to red. These cancel out, and your final answer should be a negative 26 minus 11i over 17. Do this one and bring it up. It is I plus 1 over 2 minus I plus 3 plus I over I minus 1. Let's simplify first, so let's multiply this one by 2 plus I. If we do that, we're going to end up with 4 minus I squared. 4 minus I squared is 4 plus 1, which is 5. And on the top, when we multiply I plus 1 times 2 plus I, we end up with 2I plus I squared plus 2 plus I. Now on the other side, when we simplify, we need to multiply this one top and bottom by I plus 1. So we end up with I squared minus 1, which is really a negative 2. So if we multiply the top by I plus 1, then we will have 3I plus 3 plus I squared plus I. Let's go back and simplify I squared and 2. So that's negative 1 plus 2, that's going to be a 1. And then 2I plus I is 3I. On the right side, we'll have I squared and 3. That's the same as 3 minus 1, so that's going to be a 2. And then we have 3I plus I, and that's 4I. Everything over negative 2. So this is 1 plus 3I over 5 and plus 2 plus 4I over negative 2. Is that the same thing as the last page? Okay. So clearly we need a common denominator of a negative 10. Let's do that. So on the left-hand side, we multiply the top by negative 2 to get negative 2 minus 6i. And on the right side, we multiply the top by 5 to get 10 plus 20i. And let's add those together and see what we get. Negative 2 plus 10 is 8. And then negative 6i plus 20i is plus 14i. On the bottom, it's negative 10. If you simplify that, you're going to come up with the necessity to factor out what number? Negative 2, yes. So if you take out a negative 2 on the top and the bottom, you're left with a negative 4 on top, along with a minus 7i. And on the bottom, you're left with a 5. The reason being, we don't want a negative number in the denominator. That's why Mr. Strickland is celebrating back there. He knows he has it. So that's negative 4 minus 7i over 5. Here's the different way to do the last problem. It was I plus 1 over 2 minus I plus 3 plus I over I minus 1. Is that the same problem? Alright, so if we want to find common denominators first, then what we would do is 2 minus I times I minus 1 as the denominator, and what we do in that one, we do in this one. So what we multiplied the bottom in each by, we have to multiply the respective tops by. So on the top here, you're going to have to multiply that one by, conveniently, I minus 1. And it's convenient because that's going to be a difference of 2 squares. So you'll have I squared minus 1. I squared minus 1 is negative 2. So that one turns out pretty neat. On the other side, we have to multiply this one by 2 minus I. So when we do that, we come up with 6 minus 3i plus 2i, and then we have minus I squared. Alright, so let's simplify the bottom down here, the denominators, before we go to the next step. So let's multiply one of these out and come up with 2i minus 2 minus I squared plus I. So minus I squared is plus 1, with the minus 2 is going to be negative 1. And the 2i plus I is going to be 3i. Now, that's going to be the same over here, negative 1 plus 3i. But this top stays the same. We have to simplify this one here. That's going to be a plus 1, with this one is 7. And negative 3i plus 2i is minus I. We're going to cancel this one at this point because the student found her mistake, so the answer turns out to be the same as the other one. On this problem, what I did is I simplified each one first. So I multiplied this one by 2i plus 1, this one by I minus 1, when you multiply by the opposite, or not the opposite, but the quantity that makes it a difference of 2 squares, you can eliminate the i's on the bottom. I made the common denominator here after I simplified everything on the tops when I did the multiplication. I made the common denominator positive 10. So I multiplied this by negative 2, negative 5, negative 2. So that eliminates the negatives on the bottom. And then simplify the tops to come down to 3 plus 19i over 10.